We have entered the spring selling season. The inventory below the median is scarce. We are hearing more and more about bidding wars. Let's step back for a moment and ask a top 1% agent how the heck you can avoid bidding wars. What are some strategies? All right, Beth, let's go. What are some strategies to avoid bidding wars?
Hey, Michael. Yeah, so that's what people are talking about right now. It's been honestly pretty discouraging for a lot of buyers. I've been seeing bidding wars even over the median now,
Oh,
over, under, at, all across the board, bidding wars. Like we haven't seen in quite some time. And so it can be frustrating for buyers to give it their all and put in an amazing offer and be one of 10, 20, or more offers, and then have to do it again the next week and the next week. For a lot of people, it is a weekly cycle, and it can be really discouraging for folks. And so we have my team and I, we've seen some successful strategies. We've helped clients avoid the bidding wars recently, and here's a few things that we've done. So one of my team members recently had some clients looking for something really unique. So what she did was she combed through expired and canceled listings. And believe it or not, folks, not every listing sells. And especially if you go back a few months, 3 months,
yeah.
6 months, and she found one and reached out. In our area, we don't have necessarily contact information for the seller. It's not a place you can go knock on the door. So, we reached out to the agent, and plus, honestly, as an agent, I think it's good to just keep that relationship with the person. I mean, unless they, sometimes there's situations where they're really not working together anymore and they'll let us know, but we just reached out like, hey, I have a buyer for this listing of yours that is now canceled and now off the market. Are your sellers still interested in selling? And interestingly enough, the pushback was received where the agent actually said, don't submit an offer. They're accepting an offer from someone else. But we submitted the offer anyway, because when you submit the offer in Washington, at least, and I think in most places, you're required to submit all offers that you get. Even if you think they're not going to be accepted, it's not the agent's call, it's the seller's call. So
Correct.
Offer was submitted. It was really great. It was actually win-win for seller and for buyer, great terms for both. Compelling enough for them to take it over, and who knows if they had another offer or not, but it was good for both parties and it was accepted. So there was some pushback, but I don't know where that was coming from. It seemed like it was coming almost more from the agent than from the seller, because for whatever reason, I could speculate about why.
Well, I'll speculate for you because
Okay, I'll
I
let
can't.
you say it. Yeah.
He wanted to double into transaction.
Exactly.
That's what he was trying to do. That's my opinion. That's not Beth, because he's nice. I'm not nice.
I try to be diplomatic and assume the best about folks, but that was the very first thing I thought too, is like they have a buyer and they're pushing back because they want that offer to be accepted. They get both sides of the commission. So
of course.
However,
That's
offer was
my
submitted
opinion.
anyway. We don't know. I mean, we don't know, but that's like, there's a good possibility that could be the scenario. Whatever the reason, they were pushing back, didn't want to accept the offer. Offer was submitted. That was so great. Seller took it. And now we're moving on toward closing. Everybody's happy, and buyers did not have to compete.
I think that's a great idea. I mean, I've heard nobody talk about that the last year. And let's be clear, for 15 or 20 years, expired listings was a hunting ground.
It was.
Right.
Yeah.
That was something you were taught, right? Go hunt
gold
there.
mine. Yeah.
Right. Nobody's looking. It's there's gold in the trash, or whatever you want to call it, diamonds there. I think that's a great example. I think that is a wonderful strategy. More agents, especially if you have a client that wants something unique.
Yeah.
Because sometimes unique properties come and there's no buyer yet. But if you do find a buyer that wants it later, going back and finding it, I think that's a genius move. All right.
Yeah.
That's a good one.
Here's another one. So recently, another agent on my team said, my buyer is interested in this house, but it's under contract contingent. So flipper flipped a house, and I think they overpriced it for where it is and what it is. They weren't getting any offers even in this market. And then it went under contract, but pending, but contingent on buyer selling their home. We call that a contingent offer. So there
course.
aren't too many of those, but in King County, Seattle area, there might be a small handful of those every week will happen, even in this market.
Okay.
So I said, just go ahead and bump them. You can bump a contingent offer. So there's usually something, you'll have to see how your contracts are written, but here in Washington, there's a bump clause in there that says if a seller gets another offer that they like better, it doesn't even have to be higher price. It just has to be one that they like better that isn't contingent on sale of a home. Then they can bump offer number one.
Oh,
They send
really?
a notice. Yeah, that's one of
I
the
did not
things
know that.
about a contingent. Having a contingent offer accepted is you as the buyer better get under contract quickly, because until you're under contract, someone else can swoop in and try to bump you out. And in that case, you're forced to either close in 30 days regardless and waive all contingencies, or get your house under contract within 5 days. So the pressure's on.
Okay,
So
so it starts a
sometimes
clock.
it's 3 days, sometimes it's 5 days. It's negotiable how many days that bump period is, but
Hmm.
look for contingent homes that you can bump.
Hmm.
And that can
I
be a
have
way
never
to
heard of
get
that.
in there. Yeah. So, and here it's hard for the general public to understand sometimes which ones are contingent. There in our MLS, there's a status box that we check for contingent. That's probably that way in most. But the deal
Probably.
is how it shows up on the Redfins and the Zillows is it doesn't always say
Mm-mm.
that
Just
on
says
there.
pending. Yeah, it just says
Sometimes it'll
pending.
say pending. Sometimes it'll say, I've seen it say active still. Sometimes it'll say something in the middle.
Hmm.
Like sometimes it'll say contingent, but that doesn't mean like, well, what does it mean? Contingent on what? And
Yeah.
I know in some markets, all pending houses say contingent. So I'm like, what does that
Oh,
mean?
interesting.
I don't know. I just noticed that when I was poking around in Arizona on, I think it was Redfin or something. I don't
Okay.
know. I'm like, anyway, it's going to vary market to market, but make sure you've got a great agent that's including that in the search. It's very easy just to skip over that checkbox. I'm looking for active listings. Like, well, throw
No.
contingent in there too, because you never know.
Yeah, especially if you're in a state where the bump period, there's a clock. And again, I love the fact that the the seller just has to like it better. So it
Mm-hmm.
doesn't have to be higher price. It doesn't have to be any of those things. Just the seller likes it better, right? Seller discretion. So
Yeah, there's a
I
lot of ins and outs with that whole contingent process.
I like it.
But that is something that it benefits the seller, because seller's taking a big risk when they accept a buyer's contingent
Oh
offer. So
yeah.
they want to have it still shopped out there in case they get a better option. They don't have to take it. They can get an offer that's better and they don't have to bump. It's their decision,
Mm,
but they may, because they want to move on with their plans, and a
yeah.
contingent sale can drag on for months, and in the end they can be left with nothing and back on the market. So if you come in and say, look, I'm approved, I can close in 30 days, we can get you down the road. And if that buyer can't remove their contingency, then buyer number one, then buyer number two gets the deal. So that's another way to get in there. And there's a lot of misunderstandings about that. Like I've heard that it has to be full price, or it has to be this or that. No, it just has to be one that they like better, period.
Awesome. Awesome.
So
Well, I like
yeah.
it. Canceled and expires under contingent. Those you're 2 for 2. I hear you got one more.
Yeah, the third one's probably the most obvious, but look for the ones where they really just don't know how to market the property at all.
Mm,
Where it's either the agent or the seller not being coachable or something, where it's looks terrible.
yeah.
There's an example. I think of a few examples right now, right in my local market, where my buy box, where I see these ones where it says right in there, seller motivated. We'll look at all offers and it's priced. I'm like, oh, it's priced pretty well. Why is it not selling? There's junk everywhere. I mean, it's not really junk, like destructive
Just
junk. It's
yeah,
just
it's
stuff. It's like people's how they normally live. They didn't do any
yeah.
cleaning up before they put it on the market. Dark photos taken on a not even a good cell phone. Um, Dirty wall, like an empty room with dirty walls. Like
Yeah.
that's easy to fix, right? But it looks
Yeah.
from a lot of buyers, they look at that and think, oh man, this looks like it smells or it's dirty or I don't like this one. Here's another one that's shiny and pretty. Let's go jump in with the 20 other buyers that want to buy that one.
Yeah.
When there's this other one here and they're giving the invitation. They did a price drop right away and they said, seller motivated. Maybe they bought contingent. That's another thing. You get these sellers
Yeah.
out there that have to throw their house on the market really fast because they need to get their house under contract so they can
Yeah.
secure the house they're buying. So that's my all-time favorite because that's the most common. I see that all the time. Those ones that are very easy to want to scroll past. They're not going to get the likes and the favorites and the showings and the offers. And it's just a very good opportunity to get in there. And sometimes it's just mismarketed. Like the house, there's one in my local town where I think it's actually could be priced right. And it's a cute little starter home, but they're advertising it as something that it isn't. They're advertising it as an opportunity to develop it into a fourplex later when sewers come in. And like there are no sewers coming into this area ever. I know because I'm on the board. It's like it's not going to be there for decades, and it's not zoned for a fourplex or even a duplex. Like, and they're talking about all the investment benefits of it, but really I think it's probably a first-time home buyer going to buy that house.
Yeah.
It's an investor selling it, and I can see how an investor would look at that, but they have wrong information. And a first-time home buyer looking at that is not going to care about potential to build a fourplex. They don't care about that.
No.
They just want a cute house, in a great location, a nice
Yeah.
starter home to live in. That's how it should have been marketed, and it, other things like it's not staged, there's
Mhm.
other things that aren't good about it too. So there's a few ways that people can avoid the crazy. It's easy to get discouraged, but I want to give people some hope too, that there are still deals being made. And here's something interesting, because I look at my hot sheet every single day, and I'm still seeing, we're still working through the pending sales closing from the last 30 days or so. And there's a bunch of them on there closing now that have market times over 45 days, which is like an eternity around here. So 45 days, 100 days. There's a bunch of them closing under
Mhm.
list price that have been on the market a long time. And it's some of that stale inventory just moving through.
Yeah.
And then I'm
I
seeing
get
some of the newer ones that are pending quickly, and they're going hundreds of thousands over. But you can look and see the differences, like why are these ones on the market longer and selling for this price, and why are these other ones selling for higher
yeah.
price? And you can see the patterns there.
I'll give you one more. Just this is one I've personally used a couple of times. And I've been in markets, a couple of markets where bidding wars or multiple offers were common. I always like to be in second place because I don't like to overpay, right? Great deals only, all of that. But something I did that I don't see a lot of people do was follow up. I actually called every week. And the first 2 or 3 weeks, the agent's like, hey, no, we're good, we're good, we're good. And sometimes they close without a hiccup. But more than zero had problems. And it may not work today in King County because you're getting over lists. So maybe they throw it back on. But there's a lot of times where that agent and frankly, that seller wants certainty. And if
Yeah.
you're the guy or gal that's called back 4 times or five
Mm-hmm.
times and said, you're still good, you're still good, you're still good,
Mm-hmm.
sometimes they'll cancel that escrow and just insert you. And I've done that dozens of times
That's
over the
an
years.
excellent strategy. And one thing I would add to that is you can ask as a runner up to ask to be in a signed backup position where you have a legally binding contract where if offer one fails, you automatically slide into first place. So there's no chance of them calling somebody else. But I like the idea of the follow-up sometimes too, because urgency dies down. Say you're two,
Yeah.
3, 4 weeks even in.
Yeah.
Things often fall apart, usually in the very beginning, the first week or the last week. Because if somebody's having
Exactly.
problems with, if it's due diligence, it's going to be the first week. And if it's financing, it's usually the last week, because the lenders tend to not want to say it's not going to close until they've really tried everything, and then
Right.
it dies. So,
Yeah.
I mean, most buyers, hopefully, if you're a buyer out there, make sure your financing is 100% approved and ready to rock and roll. But, some people out there maybe aren't, and then they get the news late that it's not going to close. So, and
Yeah.
that's always a crushing blow for a seller and a buyer,
Yeah.
really. So,
Well, I want to follow up on something. Last week, you came back from the Vegas event. You had listed a house, I think, just below the median. I think you had like 12 offers and counting. I'm guessing it's in escrow now. It's currently in escrow, significantly over asking, I'm guessing.
yes, we ended up with 16 offers on that one, and a few more kept coming in, and it did land about, I'll just say between 15 and 20% over list price on that house. And it was not artificially underpriced. It was priced exactly where the recent sales indicated it should be listed.
Mm.
So
Of the 16 offers, I'm just curious if you can answer, it's okay. How many of them were cash? Do you recall?
I think one or two were cash, so the vast majority are financed.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Would this be considered a starter home, like a first time buyer home?
I was a first time buyer that bought it.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Good for them.
Mm-hmm. I'm glad they
Okay.
got it. They were
Right.
thrilled to get it. We saw a lot of people that were getting really weary because they need a home and they've been trying and trying and trying and lost multiple times to the point where there becomes there's like this whole
Discouraged.
denial and then
Yeah.
acceptance, the whole process that people go through where they were accepting this is what the market demands of us right now if we want to buy this
Yeah.
house in this area. And say there was it's hard to, not everyone indicated whether they were first time buyers or not, but I'd say a good percentage of them were probably between
Okay.
third and half. A lot of them, you get
Yeah.
high income earners buying
Yeah.
offering in the area.
Yeah, of
So
course. Yeah, you got Microsoft, Amazon right in the
yeah.
backyard. It makes
Mhm.
total sense.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, when you look at the market, we're ending February. Man, February, like next time we talk, it'll be March.
Yeah.
Um, you're in the spring selling season. How's it been? How's inventory? How's demand? What's going on?
Yeah. So it's been interesting. I listened to your daily financial news and I've been hearing about the inventory going up nationally. I haven't seen that at all here.
No, not in my backyard.
Our January numbers showed that for new listings, we we're basically the same as last year, which was already really low, and inventory still overall was down quite a bit. I think it's almost going to get worse. My prediction is it's going to take a hit lower for inventory in February because the buyers are out in force and very few listings. There are some I'm working on right now for where we're looking at what our pricing should be. And there are no recent comparables from the last 3 months in those areas. And so we have to go, it's a little more, it's interesting to try to price it with that in mind. But inventory is still really low. I think that unless we see a massive surge here soon, it's going to take something quite dramatic to really balance it out. Because if you have between 10 and 20 buyers offering, those are just the ones that decided to offer. If you have 10 to 20 buyers offering on every home, it's going to take a lot of homes to absorb that demand.
Yeah,
exactly. Lot. I don't see it coming. And especially if, I know we're probably not going to see a rate drop in March, maybe May. I don't know.
Yeah.
But when that happens, I think that's going to increase the demand
again.
more.
Yeah.
So
when does the spring selling season end for you?
Most years I notice the seasonality usually works where I see it start to cool off usually sometime around Mother's Day or so about mid-May.
May. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So we're still in the thick of it.
And it can stay pretty strong until school gets out, and then in the Seattle area we have gorgeous summers and people are just gone. They're easily distracted when the sun comes out. They're gone. They're out hiking, they're traveling, they're doing other stuff.
Yeah.
So
I like it.
That's another tip. You can wait. I mean, it's hard to time the market, right? But if you tend to shop on the off season, you're going to get better deals.
Yeah.
You'll have
We've
leverage.
seen that the last two holiday seasons, right? Where people could actually get seller credits and all of that.
I see it every year to different degrees. So in our area, it's around August or so and December.
Yeah. I like it. I love the strategies. 3 strategies to avoid bidding wars. Get your agent to farm canceled and expireds. Look at the under contingent and try to bump them. Or look for badly marketed inventory. Beth, if somebody wanted to reach out to you, buy or sell in King County, or better yet, get a referral to another top 1% agent, how would they do that?
Yeah, I can be reached at my best ways to contact me through my website, BethTraversogroup.com.
There you go. BethTraversogroup.com. Beth, you're amazing. Keep it up.
Thank you.